Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com as well as on Amazon. I have one announcement. Please notify your Attorney General in your state regarding solar panels made by Sonova Generac Systems. If you're having any difficulty with Sonova Generac Systems, please fill out the complaint form in your Attorney General state. Now, I have a return guest on. I'm happy to have Nate Munro back on. He was on season 5, episode 167, 180, and 198, where we had talked about systems set up to avoid accountability. And today we're going to talk about health tips for activists and parents, as well as the troubling nature of narcissism. And I welcome you, Nate. We've got a lot to go over, so I'm glad you're back on.
Thanks for having me, Maryann. I appreciate being able to come back and talk about these important issues.
Oh, yes. Parents need to hear this, and people that are getting out of family court need to hear this because sometimes they jump right into activism and maybe they're not ready.
That's a good point as well, because many folks, if you haven't taken some time to do self-reflection and do some of your own healing, many times you might not be ready to actually live up to your own expectations. Like, I'm sure you're going at it with the best of intentions, but if you are untrained in your damage, you
Hmm.
may end up inadvertently hurting somebody else or giving them bad advice, leading them down a bum road. So you want to be careful and do a little introspection before you get started in these types of things. And that's a common thing for parent advocates. And I don't want people to stop advocating for others because of that. Just be aware of that. It's not to be
Right.
afraid of it, just be aware of it.
Or just
But
take
that's an
on
excellent
a
point.
couple people, right, Nate? I mean, don't get inundated with too many.
Start small and work up. I can tell you, once you get like 7 or 8 people and you at the same time, they can all come back on the same day. And that can be brutal on its own. And it'll push anybody who's been through this before to your limits. Like it's very easy to get overwhelmed, other things like this after you've been through one of these really traumatic experiences. So,
Definitely.
Maryann, before I get started, I do want to lay down a little disclaimer that I am not a psychologist or a doctor or a lawyer,
Yep.
although I am an ADA advocate, so I can speak to the law as far as the ADA is concerned. And I am someone who's survived many traumatic events, including having my arm amputated and being tortured for 2 years beforehand. And so, like, I've got a lot to add to this because I've done 3 years of really intense trauma therapy. And
Hmm.
I'll try to bring a lot of those thoughts forward, as well as some of the health tips and other things I learned partially in the oncology department and stuff at the hospital and stuff. So I paid a rough admission for all this information, and I'm going to spread it around so hopefully other people don't have to walk my same footsteps, because I do not advise that.
Yeah,
It's
no, I
not a
mean,
fun road.
yeah, that's right. Because I mean, I'm not an attorney either, and there's no such thing as good legal advice. So we're here just
Right.
helping.
Well, these are mainly going to be tips for how to run your case and stuff. So I did learn all of this stuff from reputable doctors, nurses, therapists, and lawyers. So it's not like I'm just making anything up. These all came from legitimate sources. And I will just cap the whole thing off by saying this is for entertainment purposes only, and none of this should be seen as a replacement for legal or medical advice in your case. You should probably check with your doctor before you start any new health regimen. Just to be clear, if you don't have a doctor, you already are.
Yeah.
If you don't have a lawyer, you're pro se and you're already talking to your lawyer. So, but do it at your best judgment for yourself.
Hmm.
And that said, everything that I've got here is pretty much safe to try for most people, and they've worked well for all the families I've shown. And I'll let you know if you need to watch out for any critical health issues like diabetes or anything like that that could be a compounding issue.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Okay. So to start with, many parents are going to end up with PTSD from the legal abuse that you suffer in family courts. I'm starting out with the health recommendations before we even get into the legal tips or the
Hmm.
advocacy tips, because until you are kind of regrounded and recentered, your brain's going to be all over the place while you're in fight and flight mode.
Oh,
Okay, because
yes.
this is what PTSD does. It puts you in fight and flight mode, which could be fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode.
Mhm.
All of those reactions fall in there. So over complimenting people is part of the same reaction process, although not as tragically horrible to your life as the fight or flight or freeze part.
Mhm.
Freeze is actually the one that we're going to talk about to start with, because fighting, we all know we probably want to control the way we're having our debates and arguments so we're not seen as fighting. That's one of the main things, because if you do that with an, especially with a narcissistic personality type, they're going to reflect that back and like, oh, right, now we get a brawl. So you want to contain that and kind of set boundaries so you can avoid that. Being calm is also part of that. But we'll get into more of how to deal with narcissistic personalities here in a
Okay.
little bit. I'm just saying narcissistic personalities create abuse, which creates PTSD and C-PTSD, which is compound PTSD. The difference between the two really quickly: PTSD is a one-time event that was so shocking it traumatizes your brain.
Mhm.
C-PTSD is death by a million different paper cuts, where you just get hit over and over and over with abusive behavior until it creates a PTSD type of response.
Yes. Oh,
Do you have any
it definitely is.
questions?
Well, also, like, it was explained to me with PTSD, that it's like a car, you've been in a car accident. Okay, so that's over. But with family
Right.
court, it's over and over and over again for years. And this is why people have this compound PTSD.
It's kind of like, I don't know, I want to get too political with this, but if we all remember back in like 2003 when George Bush was on the aircraft carrier with his mission accomplished sign or banner behind him, he's like,
Mhm.
it's over. But no, the Iraq war went on for 20 more years. So like
Right.
this is
Yeah.
very similar because it's about the same time frame. It's going to be 2 decades till your kids aged out, basically. So it
Hmm.
can be bad for that long if you're not careful. So we're
Right.
trying to set up some, first of all, minimize the damage that you take, and then create some better ways to deal with these folks so you don't end up in those same positions. Okay, so what
Mhm.
I found, the main thing that creates PTSD or traumatic responses in general is not having a response support group.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this is one thing that the family courts eliminate for you. Normally cut you away from your family, destroy all your friends, like demonize you, make you look like garbage, slander you, all these things with the false allegations. And other people who aren't associated with it, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so much drama. I do not need extra Jerry Springer show in my house. I just will see what happens with that guy or that lady. And they oftentimes get kicked all over the schoolyard as a result because they don't have anybody there backing them up and helping. Whereas the family courts have all kinds of support structures in place to help them do their thing.
Oh.
So the first thing you need is a support structure of some sort.
Mhm.
Even if your family's been eliminated, there's other ways to build that. But we'll get into those techniques here in a little bit. But the point I want to make right now is the way to stop stressful events from becoming traumatic is having a support structure and someone to talk to about it. And so you don't feel like you're isolated. Because if you feel like you're isolated, that is the necessary component to create permanent damage from the trauma. So
I
that is one.
I agree.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear that. And
Yeah.
thank you for agreeing. So, the first thing to deal with PTSD, and the thing that I find most parents get stuck with, is being stuck. Now, this is part of the freeze response when you're in a fear mode. So there's a lot of ways to address this, but the first is to analyze and see, oh my gosh, I'm stuck. And it's going to be it's a non-logical point, or illogical point rather. I'll use English for this.
Mhm.
So it's going to not really have a rational basis to it, because fear is not a rational impulse. It's something that's just occurring because of a traumatic response you had at some point, and
Mhm.
now your brain is trying to address it as such. But the more you can identify these things and label them, the more you'll be able to have capacity to understand it and have more mindfulness within yourself. So the secret to all of this is in self-reflection and learning to be mindful, so you can listen to your body when your body is telling you stuff. Because your body, all along while you're going through this trauma, your body's going to be telling you stuff like, I'm hungry now, I could really use a nap. Now, a lot of these things may not be possible at all the moments when you get them. But if your body's telling you these things, understand it as, oh, I need to get more sleep. I need to eat more of a balanced diet. If you're falling asleep after you've been eating, you're eating too many carbs, which can happen to people that have pre-diabetic situations. We'll get down
Hmm.
into that with the diet here in a little bit. But notice these things about yourself. Pre-diabetic conditions are no joke, let alone if you actually get diabetic issues. But diabetic shock makes you feel like you're drunk. So you're out of your head, and it will be confusing and difficult at the beginning. And there's no real warning label for any of these things.
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
So that is the big problem with this. And that's kind of what I'm here today, is spread the word so people can know how to deal with this.
mhm,
So back to the point here. The first issue is when you're stuck. So fight, flight, and freeze. The fawn one, I'm not going to worry so much about. That's quit complimenting people too much, and you can kind of work on that. That's the least of all these.
mhm,
But fighting is a big deal for people with PTSD because they will use that against you. So you want to avoid that at all costs. Running is not an option when you're locked into one of these stupid family court deals. So you have to face these things.
mhm.
And that's what gets you stuck, because then you're like, I don't know what to do. I'm
Yeah.
confused. And the confusion is the beginning point for this. So identify these things in yourself. Furthermore, when you've got PTSD, you're going to have flashbacks, what they call maladaptive daydreaming. There's a lot of different names for this stuff, but you will be time traveling. Your
Mhm,
brain will take you off into some event that happened years past, or maybe you're worried about something that'll happen in the future. So the first goal here is live in the now. You need to live in the present. If you're worried about things that happened in the past, you're going to be depressed. That's the marker to make depression. If you're worried about things that have not happened yet in the future, that's going to create anxiety.
mm.
Okay. So one of the first things is concentrate on what you're doing at that very moment and chunk down whatever you're up against into baby steps, not to be too much of a quote from the What About Bob movie, but that actually highlighted this concept in a
Yeah.
pretty hilarious way, actually. But the baby steps concept is very important here. You want to not take on anything too big all at once and pick on kind of the weaker issues to start with, so then you can focus on the big ones that are going to take all of your attention.
Hmm. Hmm. No, that's
So
all very true, especially the live in the now. It's very hard for people to let go of what's going to happen next and just live in the now.
it takes mental discipline. You're right.
Hmm.
And it's going to take some practice. So just start practicing. It's not going to work perfect the first time. You just got to keep practicing. But the trick is, the more you can focus on this and go, oh my gosh, I'm time traveling again. Now we're worried about things in the past. And first thing I'll say before I get into the techniques to stop that, if you're worried about things in the past, they already happened. You can't do anything about them. You can accept what happened and try to do better, but you don't need to keep reliving it like, I could have done this and this and this. Sure, you could have. That's a note for the next time, and that's how you grow and get better experience,
And that
right?
takes discipline too,
Yes,
because
all this is
everyone,
going to take discipline. None of this is easy.
right? I mean, all of us, even myself, I woke up this morning, it's like, well, what if I had done that differently? It's over now.
I still do it. I still do it too, Maryann. I'm here giving the course on this, right? I still do it too. These are all techniques I use, and that's why I'm here sharing them, is because they were things that were effective for me to overcome these problems.
Hmm.
So the thing is, though, things that happened in the past, you can't do anything about them. It's over and done with. You could regret it and want to change and do things different, but you can't do anything about them now. So it's not really worth your time worrying about that so much. Worry's not going to help with that. Now, let's look in the future. If you're worried about things that have not happened yet in the future, there's no given that they're going to actually go that way. There's a lot of things you can do in the present, if you take control of your situation, that will affect the way those things go in the future. Sometimes it's inevitable and you just have to bear down and deal with stuff. But most of the things that you end up worrying about never happen anyway. To quote one of my favorite wise men, the wise Tom Petty.
Oh, I love Tom Petty.
Yeah, well, he's full of good stuff. So he lives on. Okay,
Yes.
so getting unstuck then when you have PTSD. So one of the first things that can help with this is getting healthy in general, because you start improving your diet and all these other things. Like I was saying before, your brain chemistry will actually change, because right now your body's dealing with tons of toxins that it should be cleaning out, that it, because of stress and trauma responses, your body's not at 100%. And we'll
Right.
get into all how that works too. But that's why people who are in these family court situations are at higher risks for cancer, diabetes, heart attacks, all 10 of the leading causes of death, actually.
Oh,
And
that's
suicide
neat.
too is part of this. If you can't keep your mind straight and
Hmm.
focused, you could have a suicidal ideation. I'm sorry, unaliving ideation. Try and be good for everybody at YouTube. Okay, so PTSD depletes your body of key electrolytes, vitamins, and minerals too. So you could go to talk therapy all you want until your body chemically gets repaired. It's going to be very difficult for a lot of this talk therapy stuff to even get through, because your brain's still dealing with all the toxins floating around in your bloodstream for you every day. And until you get your body fixed, this is causing systemic inflammation. So it can cause all kinds of health issues.
Hmm.
We'll get into more of that, but we're still touching on this. Okay, so you're caught in a flashback, and it's crazy. You're reliving one of the worst experiences in your life. Your kid's getting ripped away from you. If you've already been alienated from your kid, there's horrible fears like, will I even recognize my kid if I see him again? All these horrible things. You're like, I'm all caught in this. So the way to do this is to, once again, this is going to take some discipline. Catch yourself while you're in your flashback. So this takes practice, but the more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. Because now when I get in one of those, I'll tell myself, okay, I'm not thinking about that right now. Start by telling myself that. If that doesn't get into my brain right away, like it's too heavy and I'm still like caught in the flashback, the first thing you need to do is count stuff. But my first technique is count corners. Now, by counting things, you're engaging your logical prefrontal cortex part of your brain rather than just your spinal cord, which is what's reacting. So, the part of your brain in the back by your spinal cord is what narcissists and people with antisocial personality disorders use, because it's all reactionary. So the more you can get out of the reaction mode and use your thinking brain, the better you're going to be, and the more likely you're going to be able to take control of this again. In
Hmm.
therapy, they called it the horse and the rider. The horse is like your spinal cord. It goes wherever it wants to if the rider's not in control and tells it where to go. So you need your brain involved so you can tell the horse where to go. Okay.
Hmm.
And that's the first key to getting control over the rest of this. Because if you're caught in these maladaptive daydreams, you could waste hours. I used to waste hours of my day just dwelling and ruminating over all this garbage that used to happen to me. And so it's not productive. And the only way to get you out of the deep hole you're in is to start being very productive with your life.
I agree with that. And I always tell parents to stay busy.
That's a great way too. And that's how I got out of mine when I was stuck, is start helping other people. If your thing is too big for you to even deal with and to wrap your head around, try to help somebody else. And it doesn't need to be with family court things. You could just help out with any type of volunteer work. But volunteering to help other people will do two things. It will help you internally to rationalize your own damage and get more prepared. It will also build your community around you, which will help you with your case, actually,
Hmm.
ultimately, to have more community. There's your support network starting to be rebuilt, right?
Right, right. And these could be your court watchers.
Well, you're going to steal my thunder, but I'll let you,
Oh,
Maryann.
sorry. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. You're exactly correct, though. These are the people that will help you and assist you by coming to back you up at court events and other things. So this is very important.
Mhm.
All these things are important, and it's a big puzzle that you got to put back together. Okay, so counting corners, though, is the main thing. You can find corners on windows, door frames, light switches,
Mm.
computer monitors. That's why I like counting corners. I've heard other versions of this. My trauma therapist used to tell me to just count stuff in general. So I started looking for light switches, and that's how I trained myself to count just corners on a light switch. But I was like, you know what? Not every room has a light switch. I mean, most do, but some don't. And but there's always a door. or a door frame or a window or a computer monitor very often when you're dealing with some of these very stressful events. I mean, you're dealing with an email that stresses you out. Right
Mhm.
there's the computer monitor, or even the corners of the page on your screen. Any of those things. The important thing is, it could be pencils on your desk. It does not matter. You could count your fingers if you wanted to, but
Mhm.
just the act of counting engages your logical brain and switches it over from your reactive brain. Now, what's interesting about your brain is it can only do one of two things at once. It can do fantasy mode or it can do reality, but it can't do both at the same time.
Mhm.
So, what you're doing here is forcing your brain to come back into reality so you're not stuck in the matrix anymore.
Right. And also we shouldn't let these people live rent free in our head.
Good point also. They do not deserve that, and you deserve better as the survivor of this.
Mhm.
Moving on is the key to it. Now, once again, this is very difficult to do at the beginning. So, like,
Mhm.
these are goals to work towards, but don't feel bad if, like, you're like, I tried to get them out of my head and I keep thinking about it. Well, go engage in a hobby that you enjoy, or watch a comedy that gets your brain out of it, or change your scenario completely. Go out for a walk, change your environment. That
Mhm.
helps a lot too.
I agree.
Okay, so once you've hopefully gotten yourself out of the flashback, because that's the key for a lot of this, and there's so much to talk about this. I'd love to talk about other recovery techniques, but like just for time here, I'm going to try and keep us on the easiest ones for people to just learn right now at the beginning. So that's very important though, to snap yourself out of the flashback so you can regain control. Once you have that, now you need to determine, okay, I was worried about something. First of all, what I like to tell myself is there's no emergency happening right now. Now, this might not be true if there actually is an emergency where the ambulance is coming and somebody's on a stretcher or something, you're freaking out because of that. There actually is an emergency happening right now.
Mhm.
But with a lot of the family court stuff, if you're just worried about things that happened years ago or something that hasn't happened yet, including a document you're working on or whatever, you haven't turned it in yet, it's just up there. So you're just worried about things. You want to make sure that you need to make sure that you're only worried about things that are actually happening to you. So, first thing is this real? And if there is no emergency happening yet, reassure yourself by saying it out loud. There is no emergency happening right now. For some reason, if you hear it in your own ears, you'll believe it a lot more than if you just think it. You can think it repeatedly too in your head after you get used to it. But the first couple times, it really helps to just say it out loud to yourself. There is no emergency happening right now. And that helps you a lot to just get your brain back into gear. Now we're figuring out where you're at with how bad your problem is. Okay.
Mhm.
So I like to look at it with three levels for problems. Okay. We have got awkward,
Mhm.
there's uncomfortable, and then there's painful. Okay. So these are the way this makes you feel when you're dealing with this problem. Who cares what the problem actually is? It's how it makes you feel. So we're trying to analyze, like, what is this and how does it work on me? Okay.
Mhm.
So awkward is uncomfortable conversations with people. There's no real result of having like it go wrong or whatever. They might yell at you or whatever, but whatever. I'll survive being yelled at. I mean,
Mhm.
you might say something I didn't like, but I can disagree with you and we can still get on with our day. So there's awkward conversations or a lot of this. And I was finding a lot of things that were just awkward. I was assigning to the painful category
Mhm.
where it's, and then you give it more power than it deserves over your life. Right.
I
So
agree,
first
yeah.
things first, you want to say, well, this conversation with this lawyer is going to be awkward, but I'll do it. It's like rip the band-aid off, get it done with, I'll get on with my day.
Mhm.
Okay. Then there's uncomfortable where you're like, well, going out and doing a speech in public, that's very uncomfortable, but I'll go do it. And once I'm done, like, what's really going to happen to me? People could even boo me. They might even throw tomatoes. Who knows what crazy things? Hopefully not. But like, if all those, I'll survive a tomato. Lord knows, look what I've already survived in
Yeah,
family court. I'm going to survive a tomato.
exactly.
So like you start getting curious about the whole thing and looking at how the problem's actually going to affect you. Now, if it's actually going to cause you pain, and by pain, kind of look at these same categories as a physical response to like working out. Let's look at it in that context.
Hmm.
Okay, awkward is, oh, I haven't been to the gym in freaking 6 months. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to not be fun.
Hmm.
Awkward. Okay, well, you got to go because it's going to make you feel better,
Yeah.
right? So we're going to just get over the awkwardness and deal with it anyways. Then you're like, oh, it's going to be uncomfortable and I'm going to be sore afterwards. Well, that's not a reason to not do it. You're still going to be healthier as a result. So it's worth your personal discipline to force yourself to go do that because you know it'll improve your life as a result.
Hmm.
Okay. And there's going to be some of this that is uncomfortable that you're going to have to do this way. So it's kind of like this. Now, if you get to the gym and you're like, you know what? This week, I'm going to bench 600 freaking pounds. This is fun for me, especially as a one-armed guy. And
Man.
you're like, okay, I'm going to just try it. And you get in there and it's painful and you feel ripping and it's hurting and causing like a stabbing or a bleeding sensation or ripping. That's painful. That is not healthy and not good. You need to work up to that point. Same is true with mental health issues. If you're dealing with one of these that is truly painful, like, oh my God, I can't bear thinking about my kids being ripped away from me.
Hmm.
Well, deal with the little stuff first to be able to chip away at that stone at the end is your goal. I mean, you're probably gonna have to deal with it at some point to make peace with this at some point,
Hmm.
or to go get them back, or whatever you got to do. But it's you got to work your way up to it. It's not a thing you want to just jump out of the gate and just attack right away. Does that
Right.
make good sense about how to
Oh,
deal with that?
exactly. Exactly.
I'm hoping this will help a lot of people
I
because I
think
know
it will.
almost every parent I run across has these same issues if they've gotten into the PTSD realm of things.
I've had parents, they'll call me and they'll say, I'm so worried about this. Should I do this? Should I do that? I don't know what to do yet. I don't know what's going to happen. And I said, look, if you don't know what to do, then do nothing and
Good
just
advice.
sit.
Sit back and contemplate it. And that's part of this too, because impulsivity is part
Mhm.
of being wounded. And that's the flight. That's the flight aspect where you're like, I just got to run. I just got to run. And you don't. You want to think about it first so you know what direction to run in so you don't run into a trap.
Yeah.
Because that's what family court is built for, is to catch you like freaking out about one of the other issues they're causing you. And then you end up in a dangerous situation.
Mhm.
So, oh, one of the things you can do to practice doing uncomfortable things, you're like, I don't know, all my court stuff sounds really horrible right now. I don't know where to even start with that. Start with something uncomfortable like a cold shower. There's zero damage or risk to you for taking a cold shower. It's going to be cold.
Right.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But,
Been there,
and it'll
done
be a
that.
little jarring. But practicing, this is how the Shaolin monks do it, right? Sit underneath the cold waterfall for the whole day or whatever. I'm not saying you need to sit underneath the waterfall for the whole day, but if your shower goes cold at the end and just sit it out and take like an extra minute and a half, 2 minutes in there just to experience the coldness or something,
Hmm.
just to make yourself uncomfortable for a little bit, but you'll know you'll be secure as soon as you get out of the shower. That's a perfect way to practice this technique without having to use something that you're emotionally attached to,
Hmm.
because that's really difficult. The stuff you're emotionally attached to is the hardest stuff to do this with.
Uh, that also, and also with the coldness, it makes you more alert,
It definitely
I
does.
think.
It will wake you up. Definitely. Okay, so a great way to, okay, so we're looking at, those are some great ways to get yourself out of the flashbacks to start with. Okay, now you're like, I still feel tense. There's a lot going
Hmm.
on and there's too much. I can't deal with everything. Okay, even if you're busy whole day and there's too much going on, you can't possibly get it done, make 5 minutes for yourself to exercise,
Hmm.
because doing some physical exercise will help burn that cortisol or adrenaline out of your system. And if you leave it in your system without having done any exercise, that is what starts to really tear up your system from the inside. And that's what will create the stress responses on your liver, which will lead to all these health problems.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
exercise is really important, and doing it while you feel that tension, that nervous tension of the anxiety, this is the best way to deal with that. Depression is also the best medicine for depression is exercise also. So taking a walk is really good if you're feeling these things, even if
Mhm.
it's only for 5 or 10 minutes. It will help immensely to just get yourself out of whatever environment you were in while you were stressing. That helps to start with. You'll get more vitamin D if you're outside and breathing the fresh air. There's a lot of benefits to just walking, and it doesn't need to be intense exercise like we're saying. It's just something to get your body to pump all those fluids through your body so it can process this stuff. Because if you don't do that, that's what ends up leading to the traumatic experiences. And people, when they get isolated from their support structure, feel like it's all on them, and they end up in this 24/7 schedule of I've got to just keep doing it. And they cut down on sleep, all these other things that will make them effective at what they're doing. And the family courts are depending on you to do this to yourself, to do their work for them, to do their dirty work for them. So the main thing is try to prevent that from happening, so you're the hardest target possible.
You said it perfectly. You don't want to do their work for them.
Right. They got a whole squad working to their
Oh,
end. Don't you be the extra guy on their team, because you'll be the ringer that gives away all your weaknesses and
mhm,
your weak spots, right?
mhm,
Because they don't
mhm.
know that right off until you give it to them. So don't you help out with their efforts, because they got nothing good for you in mind.
No.
So there's a couple other exercises that work really well, because people I know, they're busy all the time. You're in front of your computer, maybe trapped in your cubicle. You can't leave your job for a couple hours and hear this crap just came in from your attorney or whatever. So one of
Right.
the first things that can help is breathing exercises. Just breathing in and out, making them consistent. Now, I've done a bunch of different counts, but I think the one that works best for PTSD folks when they're first starting is 4 count breath in, 4 count hold, 4 count breath out. So you breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I actually did a 5 count there by saying the name at the beginning. Should do it more,
But
but
that
you get it.
helps
In
slow
two,
it's
three, four,
yeah.
hold 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4.
It also helps slow down your mind if your mind is racing.
Well, part of this is because there's a stress response that your body does. When you get into stress mode, you're going to do a bunch of rapid inhales,
Mhm.
but no exhale.
Right, and you
And
don't
this
know you're
will make
doing
your
it.
brain get flighty.
Right.
Maybe flighty on purpose, because they want you to run away from this whole thing.
Mm.
For whatever reason, that's what your body does to prepare yourself to fight the bear or run away from the saber-toothed tiger or whatever we evolved to be able to use these responses for.
Mhm.
So, breathing exercises help a bunch. As you get more into it, if you can do a 6 count or an 8 count version of either one of those, it helps a lot. As soon as you get to the 8 count, though, the hold time, a lot of times I'll only hold for 4 still. So I'll do 8 count in, hold for 4. And one thing that you can do is when you breathe out, add an extra count to your breathe out, because that will start to trick your body and override your nervous system, that you're not in trouble anymore, because now I'm breathing out more than I even breathe in, and normally if I'm scared, I'm breathing in more than I breathe out. So now
Mhm.
this is tricking your body and on a chemical level that, oh, everything's okay, even if it's totally crazy and going off the rails.
No,
So this is, and that's the discipline part of it, is if you can achieve that state of mind while things are going off the rails, you are indestructible. Because I have to say, this test that you have been put through with family court makes people indestructible. If they can survive it, you will be some of the toughest people on the planet. And that's what we're aiming for, because
Mhm.
you'll need that first to survive this, but then it'll make you effective in life.
That's
So
yeah, exactly. You said it very well.
thank you. So another one that I think is so excellent for people is the vagus nerve reset. This in 2 minutes can reset your vagus nerve, which is a nerve that runs down your spinal cord, and it helps with all kinds of different body regulation issues. So it's based on eye movement directional recovery, which is a type of therapy that works very well for PTSD folks. So the trick here is you're going to lay on the ground like you're going to do a sit up with your hands behind your head. Now, if you had two, you'd be using both of them, right? But I'm working with what I got. So you're holding your head straight up. Now, and you're laying on the floor like you're going to do a sit up, but you just never sit up. You just lay on the floor with your knees bent, feet on the floor. So you're laying there holding your head straight. Now you're going to look as far as you can in your peripheral to your right, and then you're going to look as far as you can. Oh, okay. Look as far as you can in your peripheral to your right. Hold it there for
Mhm.
30 to 60 seconds. This is so amazingly uncomfortable. You cannot
Yeah,
believe it, but
it is.
this helps actually. And then after you're done with that, then you will look all the way as far as you can to your left side and hold that for 30 to 60 seconds, but don't move your head. So
Mm.
it's all just in your eyes looking from the one side to the other. Okay. And in 2 minutes, basically, less 2 minutes or less, you can then reset your vagus nerve. Now, you may have to do this multiple times. So I always call it an exercise with people, because if you're still feeling stressed out, like if the stress is still going and stuff, you probably maybe need to do this more often, but it will help. And if you do it daily,
Mhm.
it will compound and help you feel better over time. And you could actually check and see how it instantly helps your nerves in your neck and your shoulders, because turn your head to the left and right before you start, and then
Mhm.
turn them to the left and right after you get done, and you will feel the muscles and the tightness going away from your neck and your back.
Mhm.
And that's part that often I hear from parents, where their neck is so tight and constrained, where it will literally pop vertebrae out of
Oh, yeah.
place. I did that in my own neck, so I know that's totally a thing. And this is a way to avoid a lot of that, because you can cut that tension from affecting all those muscles to do that kind of structural damage in your bones.
Mhm. Mhm.
Cool. Okay. So another great exercise, and these, keep in mind, these are all exercises, even though they might not seem like it to a lot of people, because it's not like your traditional, like, let's go pump iron or whatever, do CV training or whatever. But these all actually seriously help with this. So another really good one, especially for people with pre-diabetic symptoms, or if you have diabetes, but this is very common within this crowd in general, because shutting your liver down goes that way. So these are
Mhm.
some things you can do. Sit against the wall, your butt against the wall, with your legs going straight up the wall. So you're laying on your back on the floor with your butt right next to the wall and your legs going straight up the wall. Now you're just going to let it's a great leg stretch also, but
Mhm.
you're going to let all the blood drain out of your feet and your legs. So you hold it there for 3 to 5 minutes, and you will feel all the blood drain out, and your body will be pushing hard to push the blood back up in there, but the blood it pushes back up in there is going to be your thinnest blood possible. What's collected down in your feet is your thickest blood possible. Thick blood is actually what causes heart attacks, high blood pressure,
Mhm.
all of these things. And all the toxins are what are weighing the blood down, and it's all resting down in your feet. There's other ways to deal with this too, like detox foot pads and detox foot baths. I
Mhm.
fully agree with those too, but if you're doing those, as somebody who's been through this, you'll want to be supplementing your minerals as well, because that will drain minerals out of the bottom of your feet. You have the largest pores on your whole body out of your feet, and that's why it works
Huh.
best to suck the crap out of the bottom of your feet. And anybody who's ever done that before knows the water in the foot baths or the foot pads themselves come out looking super gross, but
Yeah.
it's way better that stuff is out of you and on that stupid pad or in the bath than in you still. And that's
Right.
what your liver should be cleaning out of you, and we're going to help fix your liver as well, so hopefully that won't be a thing. But right now, your body's got a ton of toxins in it, and they're living
Oh.
in your feet. So this is a way to get them to reprocess. Now, you may notice if you get skin rashes from like diabetic issues on your legs and stuff, you
Mm.
may get some of those same rashes on your upper body and your torso, just because those toxins are now in your general bloodstream rather than sinking all just into your feet.
Mm.
So this is important to know, but very valuable. And I think even if you don't have diabetic symptoms like the sores on your legs and your feet like diabetics get, this is still very helpful to do to keep this from happening to you.
Yeah, you want to be one step ahead of
Yeah,
something bad.
absolutely. That's what this whole thing about treating your liver is, to try and avoid and prevent a lot of these other nasty things from happening, like cancer. We could use as the pinnacle version of this.
Mhm.
So, and I'll take it from me, you'd rather do it with these remedy techniques than going to the hospital because they got
Uh,
nothing but crappy ideas there.
yeah. Yeah.
We got to cut this off. You got to get radiation, all this
Oh,
chemotherapy. They got no good ideas.
yeah.
So, another great exercise is a low impact Tai Chi exercise I learned called, they call it a blood shake in Eastern medicine, but I like to call it a vertical shake so people aren't so scared of it because blood makes people get scared. But what it is basically shaking the fluids around your body. So you just basically stand up, you relax your whole body down, and you just start bouncing basically and shaking your
Hmm.
body. And you kind of bounce on the balls of your feet just a little bit. You don't need to just bounce up in the air or anything. It's not like jumping rope, but
Uh-huh.
it's kind of like just getting all the fluid going. Just keep doing that for like 5 minutes, maybe. You'll find it's actual exercise. It will start to get your breathing to coincide with the bouncing that you're doing. So you'll bounce like 5 times per each breath, inhale or exhale or whatever. You'll just start
Hmm.
bouncing through it. And that actually moves a lot of these fluids around your body, like the adrenaline and the cortisol. And that's really important so it doesn't sit up in any one spot. Because when those toxic fluids get set up, say in your back or your shoulders, that's what causes the tightness in your muscles.
Hmm. Hmm.
And another thing that can happen from this too is if you haven't been taking the time to work out like you used to, because the family court's now taking every instant in the day, you will be developing lactic acid where your muscles used to be because it's degenerating your muscles and atrophying them at some rate. Like you don't need to wait 6 months to see atrophy. Atrophy kicks in the moment you quit working on it because it's like, oh, okay, so you don't need these muscles anymore. Your body's smart. And it's like, well, I'll optimize the usage of my resources now. You don't need all these muscles, so we'll just start breaking those down. The process of breaking them down creates lactic acid. Your body communicates using acids. So if you have more acid in your body in general, your
Hmm.
brain is going to be sending more signals, whether you knew it or not, to the rest of your body. So a big chunk of this is balancing out your pH, but lactic acid will obviously be adding more on the acidic end of things.
Hmm.
And that's the pH balance is part of the rest of this. And oh, in fact, we'll talk about that. Oh, I got one last thing about exercise. The other exercises that I had personal success with that really worked well, especially in my chemotherapy and cancer treatment, was I did a lot of Tai Chi and Qi Gong, which I think are very useful, and they work on a different level than Western exercise. I also did strength training, like work lifting weights and cardiovascular type training also. But I would always I started with doing 20 minutes of breathing exercises, 20 minutes of Tai Chi, and then 20 minutes of strength training afterwards as a workout routine. And that seemed to work really well, even when I was in my weakened states coming back from the chemotherapy.
How difficult.
Oh, yoga is another good alternative to using Tai Chi and Qigong also. And I know there's lots of people out there that believe in yoga and haven't tried Tai Chi. It's fine. You can use either one. I find Tai Chi is more strength training
Hmm.
and it does some flexibility, but it's like 75 cardiovascular and strength training where it's only 25% flexibility. And yoga is more 75% flexibility, but there's strength training involved with that also, right?
Hmm.
I've
Hmm.
only done a little bit of yoga, but I know it's really hard to hold some of those positions for a long time.
Right. Yeah.
And I've seen some that I know are going to be hard, especially for me. So, or impossible. I can chalk up impossible when there's things I can't do.
Yeah, I've not
So,
tried that yet.
okay, well, yet's the important word there. But like
Yeah.
pick one that you feel most acclimated to. Like if you're like, I don't know, Tai Chi looks really goofy and I don't want to go look goofy like that. I'd rather look goofy like yoga.
Mhm.
So go do whatever,
Right.
get your freak on however you want
Yeah.
to. Let your freak flag fly. So, okay. So, the next thing we want to talk about is cleaning up those livers because that's an important thing with all of
Mhm.
this. So, the best way I've found to clean up your liver is to drink lemon water. So lemon water is,
Mhm.
it sounds real easy. Like just put some lemon in water. That's not what I'm asking. We're going to call it the lemon water challenge. What we're talking about is we're going to cut a lemon in half. Now I like to use organic lemons and you
Mhm.
definitely want to wash this thing, but you're going to cut the lemon in half and just take the half of the lemon and drop it in the blender. I cut it up in 4 pieces so it cuts up easier.
Oh,
But this
okay.
is the rind, the seeds, and everything along with the lemon. Now, people have known traditionally lemon juice has always been used as a natural cleaner, right?
Right.
So this is actually cleaning out your insides with a natural cleaner, but we're doing it and it's a lemon. So nobody should be afraid of this because all of us have had lemons before and it's probably going to be okay. So what you're going to do is half a lemon in the blender with 1 cup of water and then honey to taste. And I like using honey because honey is an antiviral, antifungal, antibiotic, anti-allergen, anti-cancer. It's really good stuff.
Oh, it
And
is.
if you cancer feeds off of sugar. So if your sweetener you're using here is an anti-cancer type of sweetener, you will be screwing up any cancer cells in your body hardcore because they're going to be looking for sugar. Then they'll get the honey, especially if you're depriving it of other sugar. They're only going to get to choke on the honey and it'll kill them. Which is I got other things too to help with that, but that will help keep cancer out of your body also.
Now, hey,
So,
Nate, not
oh,
to
go
sound
ahead.
stupid, but when you do this with the lemon and you've got it all ground up, how much water? Like a cup of water?
1 cup.
Okay.
Yep, 1 cup. And I like to use distilled or purified water if at all possible.
Hmm.
Obviously, if you're in Flint, Michigan, you definitely want bottled water or something like that,
Yeah.
depending on the grade of your tap water. But if you've got really good tap water, say you might live in another country, this should work just as good in somewhere else too. But like in the US in general, I would do it with bottled or tap or, I'm sorry, bottled or distilled or
Hmm.
purified water on some level because like you don't want extra chlorine and fluoride in the whole mix. We get
Oh,
enough of that
right.
crap as it is. Especially we're doing this on purpose to clean off your liver so it'll start processing all these toxins that are already in your body. So we don't need to add any extras as we're doing this. Like it doesn't
Hmm.
need chlorine. So
Oh, no.
So we put in the honey to taste, the 1 cup of water, and that half a lemon. You purify or you puree it. So you just keep blending it until it's so smooth it's like a lemonade smoothie. I used to call it
Hmm.
lemonade chunky style, but you really want to grind it down further till it's more like a smoothie because it's way easier to slam the whole thing. I try to drink it as quick as you can. Try to throw it back in your mouth and pass your teeth as much as you can because it will eventually chew up your tooth enamel if you're not careful.
Oh,
But
okay.
it is definitely worth doing because it. I've done it for years and years now, and it's done a little bit of enamel wear. But what you should do is just rinse your mouth out with water when you get done and it won't hurt so bad if you slam it all really fast. That helps control a lot of that too. I used to
Hmm.
chew the lemon, the chunks of lemon. That's another
Yeah,
thing that it's better to have it just as a puree, so you can just drink it as a smoothie.
that's
But
excellent.
I think that's a great way to go. Now you want to drink this on an empty stomach before you get going in the morning. I've had
Hmm.
some people that like to drink coffee first. This will actually wake you up in the place of coffee because it's giving you a honey shot right out of the whole thing. You're getting that shot of honey, so you'll get a natural pick me up from that. Plus the lemons have an energizing effect on you. I don't know how many of you guys remember science fair class where people would like power a light bulb by sticking a little probe into a lemon and being able to power a light bulb. But there is some electrochemical properties in a lemon that actually like you'll feel them when you drink it. It's like zing, you feel it. It kicks in.
No,
So
that's
you drink it in the
I'll do
morning
that. I'm
on
gonna
an empty stomach about half hour before 45 minutes before you eat. Sorry, what was that?
I'm gonna try that because I've been just drinking
Please.
just the lemon juice that you get at the store.
Pasteurized lemon juice. It's great you brought this up, actually, Maryann.
Oh,
Pasteurized lemon juice is not going to work the same because the
oh,
enzyme in the rind, and it's an enzyme in the rind that's the critical component here. That is what is actually cleaning off your liver. And pasteurized lemon juice has been cooked. So that
uh-huh.
enzyme has now been removed from it as part of the pasteurization
Mm.
process. So you have to do it fresh
Okay.
and that you also get the electrical benefit of it like I was saying like how like actual lemons have a property to them where there's an electrochemical impulse in them and I think that's part of it too. It kicks your body in and gets you powered up and going. So what this is doing is you're drinking this on an empty stomach and it's the only thing processing in your stomach, so your body starts to digest it then your liver is part of your digestion process, and the stress response we're specifically going after is a fatty film forms over the top of your liver when you go through trauma response. And this is just something your body does when it gets a trauma situation. It's probably to keep your liver from having to process too much at once,
Mhm.
probably. But as a result, it shuts it down so bile can't get through that fatty film. And if your liver can't absorb bile, your liver's done. It can't work anymore. Now you're
Mhm.
in autoimmune territory where you get all the autoimmune symptoms. And this could be anything from like asthma to food allergies to crazy undiagnosable rashes to pre-diabetic situations, kidney problems, um, all kinds of muscular skeletal things with your muscles being super tight and rigid, other types of heart issues, high blood pressure. I mean, it just, the list goes on and on and on and on. Every single one of the 10 leading causes of death in the United States can be traced back to autoimmune issues. And if your liver was working properly, you
Mhm.
probably wouldn't be as at such high of a risk for these things, even if you have a genetic predisposition towards these. In fact, many of these genetic predispositions, I am betting, are generational trauma from prior generations, since nobody's really done much
Mhm.
for trauma response as far as a general recovery for the population or just treating the damage done from narcissism. These are new frontiers we're getting into in the medical community. And to
Mhm.
be fair, the medical community as it stands now, both the AMA and the APA, this is the American Medical Association
Mhm.
and the American Psychological Association, both are compromised within the United States. So they don't even report or treat certain illnesses. So if you go to your doctor and say, hey, doc, I'd really like some information on my adrenal fatigue, he would go, you're going to have to tell me more about that because I don't know what you're talking about,
Mhm.
because they're not
Mhm.
allowed to treat adrenal fatigue. But adrenal
Mhm.
fatigue is exactly the thing we're treating right here with your liver being out of whack and not being able to process toxins correctly.
Now, with this lemon that you're grinding up, do you do that every day or should you do it every other day?
I did it every day for weeks to start with until I started feeling better. The first day I did it, I felt better.
Mhm.
I felt it around my eyes right away. I felt like
Mhm.
a zing, like my capillaries were expanding and dilating, and the blood flow was just getting where it wasn't before. And it was it was helping with my, I had high blood pressure before that. It helps with all that kind of stuff. I actually cured my pre-diabetic symptoms, so this is the first step to doing that also. And to your question, I do it until you feel like you don't need it anymore. I did
Mhm.
get to a point where after years and years of doing it, I would drink it one time and it would make my stomach upset when I would drink it.
Mm.
And so at that point, I just stopped for a little bit, but I waited a little bit, and Lord knows my life is stressful enough. It felt good
Right.
again after I did it, after I had gone through some more stressful stuff.
Huh.
But I think part of that is once your body hits a certain point, the pH gets corrected. Because what's going on with this right now is your body is absorbing lots of uric acid. And
Mhm.
because this is what normally would be cleaned out in your urinary tract, right? But it's not, because your liver and your kidneys aren't working properly.
Oh.
So that is, I think, a big chunk of the chemical component going on in your system. Whatever it is, I don't know how this ends up happening because I'm not a chemist or the doctor or whatever, but I think it ends up throwing your body off to the alkaline side of things as far as your pH,
Mhm.
because the acid from the lemons, this is pretty strong nature as far this is pretty strong acid as far as nature is able to generate on its own that you would find in nature. So we're
Mhm.
drinking a strong acid, but normally it feels really good, and I'd never had problems with it. Like I did have ulcers at one point in my life. It's been a long time. I've had those treated for a while, but I would think my stomach would be very prone to that kind of thing. But the acid never caused any type of acid reflux or ulcers or any of that kind of stuff. It actually settles my stomach when I drink it,
Mhm.
and it makes your body just feel better. You just feel better almost instantly. And that's the kind of mindfulness you need to kind of look at, is like, how did this make my body feel? Because if your body didn't like it, like the one day where it felt like indigestion, I was like, okay, well, I'll just lay off that for a little while.
Mhm.
But then my body hungered for it again later. And your body will hunger for things that it knows are going to make it better.
Yeah, definitely, because
It
I
will
have
also hunger
ulcers
for
too.
addictions. So
Oh,
we need to split those. But
exactly, exactly. When you mentioned ulcers, because I had them too, and my sister-in-law was telling me to, drink lemon juice with water, and it's like, I don't know, I've got ulcers. I can't do that. She says, no, the lemon will neutralize the acids in your stomach.
okay, and you were a nurse before, right? I don't know
Right.
where your sister sets up with everything, but that's like,
Right. She had read the book, The 17-Day Diet, that was popular in 2011.
I think this goes back to something that was known for centuries. So,
Mhm.
like, I think a lot of people know about it, but just in Western culture, we've been denied a lot of things that would make us
Uh-huh.
safe or healthy because they want us to die. There's a
Right.
big chunk of that going on in our society here, at least in the US. It's
Hmm.
definitely not a concerted effort to save anyone. We could say that. It's
Right.
kind of on you
Yeah.
to save your own butt. So, okay, so let's talk about some of the supplements that we can use to to replace some of these minerals that got depleted from your system because and these are all normal things. And if you aren't affected in the same way, I'm putting it out there as a one size fits all. If you see things that don't fit with your diet, please definitely take that into consideration before you try any of these yourself. The lemon water should be totally fine. If you are diabetic, just keep in mind about the amount of honey that you use. Try not to go overboard with it. But I
Hmm.
think, quite honestly, it's still worth trying and doing because might use a different sweetener, but I think honey is one of the better ones to use actually, just because of the
Hmm.
antiviral, antifungal, and anti-cancer properties. That said, it will start to fix things like food allergies you used to have, and your body will be able to process things better. So just by the token of that, if you're going to eat sugar in the day, this is where you should do it because it will start to correct your liver and you will hopefully be able to go back to um, dealing with things normally. I haven't gotten to deal with somebody reversing full on type 2 diabetes yet, but I think it's actually possible because I've
Hmm.
seen videos on it. It's going to require a lifestyle change probably your
Yeah.
diet to some degree and drink lemon water, some of these other things to kind of change what you were doing. If you want to get different results, you got to do different stuff, to get different results. So, but you do a couple of these things and we can probably fix that.
Hmm.
Okay, so what minerals are good for people who have been depleted? The key electrolytes that you get nailed with are the things that leak out of you when you're doing fear sweat as opposed to sport sweat. Now, I don't know if everybody's familiar with this, but fear sweat's a chemically different beast than sport sweat. If you're just out there enjoying yourself, having fun, playing basketball or playing sports or doing whatever, and you're sweating, that's going to be sport sweat. Fear sweat's different. Fear sweat's when you're having a panic attack, like if you sweat the bed where you wake up having a panic attack and your bed's just soaked, that was fear sweat.
Hmm.
It will be the same type of sweat that this is going to be gross, but I'm going to say it because this is how it is. If you find it is giving like you ring around the collar in your shirts or
Hmm.
staining your underarms, that is the minerals coming out of your body, and they're bleaching your clothes or whatever because they are harsh. A lot of it's going to be salts and other stuff in there. But the key things, normally we don't need to worry about replacing salt so much in the American diet because the American diet's got that thing covered
Yeah.
all over the
Yeah.
place. The trick is iodized salt might be necessary because iodine used to be something that was a trace element that was in the soil, and
Mhm.
our soils have been leached completely clean of it through factory farming. So we need to replace some of that. And it's kind of a bad idea, though, to use iodized salt because if you're already high on salt, you don't need more salt. What you just need is the iodine. So
Mhm.
the big three, four, I guess, that we want to cover today are iodine,
Mhm.
magnesium, potassium, and selenium. All right.
Mhm.
So iodine, the best way I've found to get iodine in your system is to take kelp supplements. You can get these at the grocery store just with the rest of the vitamin aisle and stuff. but they're called kelp supplements, and that's really good to get iodine. You want to be careful with iodine and not overtake your dosage because you can poison yourself with iodine. But I think people who are depleted can take exceptionally high doses of iodine, but feel your way through this and work your way up first. Don't just take a huge dose at the beginning, work your way into it and see how your
Hmm.
body handles it. One of the ways to tell if you're iodine deficient is to take a drop of liquid iodine. Now, one drop of liquid iodine is what you need for the day, actually. So this would be replacing the kelp supplement for the day to try this out. But you can take one drop of liquid iodine, put it on your skin. If it absorbs into your skin in 60 seconds, in less than a minute, then you are probably deficient for iodine and you probably need more. Okay.
That's
But
interesting.
that at that point, just see how you do the first day with the tester from testing it. The next day, maybe you could try 2 drops of iodine or a drop of iodine and take a kelp supplement.
Hmm.
Okay. But if you feel any tightness in your chest or any type of pulmonary issues with your heart at all, you just wean down right away.
Hmm.
Okay. And one supplement for one kelp supplement is not enough to give you iodine poisoning, though. So you should be
Right.
totally safe with those. But you want to be careful if we're like doing the test also at the same time. And if you need lots of extra iodine, liquid iodine absorbs through your skin, and it's another way to deal with it. And in fact, it's a great way to deal with infections that are underneath the skin, like with the diabetic sores on your legs and
Oh,
such. You can treat those with iodine because they will eliminate the infection from underneath the skin without having to break the surface of the skin. So
oh,
that's
that's
actually a
interesting.
very useful technique for that, but you do
Uh-huh.
want to be careful because of the poisoning issue. Okay,
Wow.
so magnesium's another vital component here, and magnesium and potassium are the two that are you need the most of. So
Hmm.
you just want to get back to your RDA, your recommended daily allowance of magnesium, if you can. I've been doing a half a dose of my RDA for a long time because some magnesium supplements work as laxatives. In fact,
Hmm.
magnesium citrate was developed to be a laxative, so I do not recommend using magnesium citrate.
Yeah.
A lot of the cheaper supplements of magnesium will have citrate in it. I find out of the cheap ones, magnesium oxide work better for me. You can turn the bottle over and look at the back, and right on the RDA where it says the nutritional values, it will say magnesium, and then in parentheses whatever type of magnesium it is. So
Gotcha.
that'll be important to know how to get a good one that you can absorb well, because magnesium in general is a harder one for your body to absorb the supplements. But
Hmm.
I got a way around that too. So we're working with the supplements because that's a good way to get it back in your body. So
Hmm.
you're going to want magnesium. You're going to want magnesium. That's the thing. You definitely want this in your body because this is one of the key things. This helps with depression and
Hmm.
helps calm your blood pressure down. So, the best magnesium out there is magnesium glycinate. That's
Hmm.
glycinate. So magnesium glycinate will absorb into your body the best. It's going to be more expensive. So, and I have not tried it yet, but I know it works better than the magnesium oxide. Still to this day, I still take magnesium oxide.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I could upgrade, but I just haven't done it yet. But that's something, if you've
Yeah.
got the extra money, you might want to do it. There's also magnesium sprays, magnesium oil spray, which I've heard absorbs much better into
Uh-huh.
your skin. So that's another option, but I know that's a little more expensive. And I normally buy my magnesium as supplements.
Yeah. You gotta do what
Now,
you
I
gotta
do want
do.
to say, oh,
Gotta
go
do
ahead.
what you
Sorry.
gotta do.
That
You
is true.
know.
Now, here's a word of warning about magnesium. If you have a high salt diet, like most Americans, and you start taking magnesium supplements, you are now in the prime category for a heart attack. And you're like, Nate, what the heck is the problem with this? I thought you were going to help us make us get better. Well, this is balancing out the minerals that get back in your body. If you just take magnesium and don't get potassium is the
Hmm.
secret there to stop you from getting into that horrid zone for where heart attacks could happen to you. Cortisol also boosts heart attacks. So this is
Hmm.
serious for
I
people
have.
who are, yeah, everybody does. If you've got through adrenal fatigue, you're going to have cortisol, chronic cortisol exposure, which is another problem that happens after you run out of adrenal, after your adrenaline runs out. So potassium is going to be important now to add. The best way to add potassium is eating salads, eating dark green leafy vegetables.
Hmm.
Broccoli also works, but spinach or kale are top of the list for this. And if you can find a way to stomach kale, that's one of the better
Hmm.
ones.
Yeah.
That takes some discipline too. I find ranch dressing or a poppy seed type dressing works well to cover it up. So you might start there, but
Mhm.
you got to be careful with some of the poppy seed dressings because they might have high fructose corn syrup in them, and we're
Oh,
trying to
yeah,
avoid that like the plague, because that is the plague.
that is.
Um, but potassium's very important there. So you'll want to make sure you're eating one of these salads as often as you're taking the supplements with the magnesium until you get kind of balanced out. After a while, you don't need to worry about it so much. But I found my body really enjoys eating the salads now because it
Mhm.
identifies them as part of the solution to making you healthy again. And
Mhm.
I used to get really tired after I was eating, get tired head and stuff. That's part of the pre-diabetic thing with the
Mhm.
brain fog. So salads will eliminate that, especially if you go through the way I was doing it was I used
Wow.
to eat a sandwich at lunch all the time. I
Mhm.
just swapped the bread out for salad. So I'll take whatever chicken breast, steak, meat, lunch meat, even whatever, chop it up, throw it on top of a salad and eat it that way. No bun. You eliminate the carb, you eliminate a lot of the brain fog, you'll eliminate the thing where you feel like you're about ready to fall asleep after you eat, because that's a product of eating carbs,
Right.
or your body processing the carbs rather.
Mhm.
So so cool. But the main thing is make sure you don't just take magnesium supplements without starting to eat salads too, because I don't want people going out and getting heart attacks. That's what we're trying to prevent here.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So selenium is another one. Okay, potassium I do not recommend taking as a supplement at all. The supplements only will give you 2% of your RDA as it is, and they will work worse on you than the magnesium citrate
Oh,
as far as
great.
laxative properties. And even worse than that is a selenium supplement. So I don't recommend taking those as supplements either. The best way to get those is eating one Brazil nut a day. Will have all the
Ooh.
selenium you need for your daily allowance. And that is by far the best way to take it. I can guarantee you
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple other things that would help also. These are not necessarily minerals, but these will help make the minerals work. I'll go in order with the vitamins. Vitamin B complex is really good for nerve recovery, which is a big
Mhm.
part of the vagus nerve treatment and just your nerves in general when you're feeling crazy. This will also help with neuropathy if you have tingling in your feet or your fingertips. Um, Many times this will also be from just repeatedly breathing in. So if
Mhm.
you find you're having a neuropathy type of episode where you're feeling the tingling kicking in, double
Mhm.
check your breathing and practice your breathing exercise. Many times that will regulate it right there.
Mhm.
But vitamin B is a very I think it's B6 and B12, but you want to take a vitamin B complex because this actually will help prevent things like oh my gosh, I don't remember if this was specifically it. I think Alzheimer's was the one that
Uh-huh.
was basically a vitamin B deficiency.
Right.
And then there's other big health issues like that are a vitamin B deficiency. So take some vitamin B because it's one of the things that gets robbed out of your body when you're going through these stress events.
Mm.
So vitamin D also helps a ton. You can get vitamin D from sunlight. 15 minutes of sunlight, they say, gives you your RDA, but I recommend more than that,
Mhm.
especially if you're recovering and you've been depleted. Most people in America or in the US, sorry, are vitamin D deficient anyway, so it won't hurt you. And vitamin D is a useful vitamin for fighting cancer also. I think
Mhm.
I find one of the things I see with cancer folks in general is most of them are not outside. They end up getting warehoused into some stupid little room, like at the hospital, even when you're getting treated. And the vitamin D component is a huge part of being able to recover. So I think that's very important. And just for everybody out there, so they know, I was told by my senior oncologist that I did better than anybody he'd ever seen that he'd treated at the
Mhm.
oncology lab that he worked with. And he's an old guy.
Mhm.
So I this is a very, and he asked me what I was doing. So I was telling him these things so he could tell other patients. But
Mhm.
vitamin D is a key element of that. Vitamin D also helps magnesium absorption. They help each other out, actually. Magnesium helps vitamin D absorption, and vitamin D helps magnesium absorption. They're like two halves of the coin there. But once again, you can get vitamin D from going outside, other than getting like vitamin D3 supplements at the store. And then I recommend only taking about 4,000 IUs a day, because you can overdo it with vitamin D as well. And in
Mhm.
fact, if you do overdo it with vitamin D, you will start feeling a tightness in your lower spine, in your lower back, right over
Mhm.
your hips. It will feel tight because your kidneys are processing more of it, and it's pushing extra garbage out, which causes inflammation around your kidneys. And that's why your back gets tight.
Mhm.
It aggravates all the muscles and tissues and organs around there.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh.
It works though. I can
Yeah.
guarantee you. I had both those problems, and you get yourself balanced out and it will go away. So, another thing that will help if you're having kidney problems at all, or if you're in pre-diabetic or diabetic phase, I've heard plant-based diets can help with this. Now, I've had other parents who have tried carnivore diet, and it's helped with some of these other issues. But if you're having problems specifically with diabetics and regulating your sugars, try a plant-based diet and definitely regulate your sugar. You're
Mhm.
watching that like a hawk, I'm hoping.
Oh,
But
yeah.
like a plant-based diet will really help. One of the things to supplement with the plant-based diet is vitamin K. Vitamin K. Now, I don't know if other people necessarily need this. This is for kidney help or health more,
Mhm.
but I can definitely recommend it for the people who are in diabetic or pre-diabetic situations, because that's what really helped me to overcome the final hurdle. I'd also done a couple kidney cleanses that were like natural kidney cleanse that I got as like a supplement in a bottle at like a GNC, or it was
Mhm.
at a CVS pharmacy where I got mine. But like that kind of thing can also help. But the thing that helped me the most was the vitamin K and a more plant-based diet. Once again, I'm not saying go vegan or be go total vegetarian. I just cut down on the amount of meat that I eat.
Mhm. Mhm.
Moderation rather than elimination.
Right.
And that helps. So
Yeah.
on that note, I also, oh, go ahead. Did you have a question?
Oh, no, go no, keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
good.
I got
Yeah,
more.
because I had heard about meat that it takes your stomach 8 hours to process.
It is harder for your body to process it. Some people believe in the carnivore diet. And so, once again, I'm not here to tell anybody how to do your thing. You do what, once again, listen to your body and practice mindfulness, what works for you. Because maybe your metabolism really wants the iron in the steak or whatever
Mhm.
and really needs it. And so, I don't want to say don't
Yeah.
do that. I mean, like, I leave it up to people, but I'm just saying this is what worked well for me, and I've recommended it for other parents, and it's worked well for them too.
Mhm.
So another great thing to help control your cortisol levels is fish oil. Fish
Mhm.
oil supplements, and it's going to seem like you're taking a lot of pills in one day when you start doing all this
Yeah.
stuff. But after you've done it for a little bit, you'll be like, "Oh man!" But my body's just working so much better now, and like I'm on all eight cylinders. That's how I felt
Mhm.
after I started taking fish oil. It made my brain work better because it cleaned up my whole body. What it did is it fought the cortisol that was clouding my mind, but
Mhm.
it contained the cortisol, and that's also stopping. It's also good for heart health because it's controlling your cortisol levels, so you don't have as bad of risk for heart attack or high blood pressure. And I don't think I don't have high blood pressure anymore, actually. I
Wow.
went through that whole thing. In fact, I actually had it pretty much regulated when I went through my cancer treatment, so I already had that kind of under control there. But
Mhm.
fish oil will help with that, and the recommended dosage for that is normally three kind of big uh, capsules of fish oil, which is kind of gross. And you definitely, it is kind of gross at first. It helps to take them while you're eating stuff. And I split them up. So I have like one with one meal and then two with dinner at night, where there's a
Mhm.
little more. But you take those while you're eating and it won't be quite so bad. It
Yeah.
helps to take the vitamin B while you're eating as well. I
Mhm.
think a lot of the rest of them don't matter as much, but those specifically. And the vitamin B actually gives you energy, so you don't want to take that one right before bed.
Right. Right.
Despite being called vitamin B, it doesn't work well before bed.
Yeah.
So, Turmeric is another supplement that I recommend to a lot of
Oh, yeah.
folks. Now, this is more for anti-cancer treatment, but it helps almost everybody because it cuts down on systemic inflammation. And
Hmm.
systemic inflammation is what leads to almost every other problem. So I am a strong believer in this. Do try to look into the turmeric that you're buying. Most of them have oh, uh,
Is is it?
trying curcumin.
Yeah.
It's ground black pepper that's in there with
Mhm.
it, and it helps activate the turmeric so it will chemically work in your system better. But most of them have that in there. You want to make sure and do a little research that your turmeric does not have lead in it. That was a thing they were doing for a while with turmeric supplements. I don't know what the deal is. It seems like nobody can leave a good thing alone. They got to put
I
some
know,
poison in there
right?
somewhere. But you can make your own turmeric supplements too. Just black pepper, and you can buy turmeric and dry it out and grind it up and put it in gel caps, and you can take it that way too. And then you can guarantee there's no lead in that.
Hmm.
But I still take pre-made supplements from the store, but just look into the origin story of where they came from so you can hopefully cut down on your lead intake because
Hmm.
nobody needs lead.
No. Huh.
And the last one I want to tell people about that's really helpful for this is probiotics. Now, these will
Yeah.
help people with what's called loose guts. And this is another common autoimmune system problem when people start to get stressed out. So they'll get the bubble guts, right?
Hmm.
Like, and they also call it Crohn's disease. I think there's so many of these diseases that are all just filed right underneath autoimmune system problems. Because like
Hmm.
it's amazing what all will get fixed when your body is back up on both feet again, per se.
Hmm.
So the probiotics, they'll help you with digestion. And this is because when your body gets too alkaline and your pH gets thrown off, your internal gut biome gets completely disrupted, I should say.
Hmm.
And a lot of the probiotics that you have naturally growing in your gut that help you to ferment and digest food get killed basically and can't survive in the high alkaline pH.
Hmm.
So you need to replace them, and probiotics will help a lot with this. Sometimes they'll call the probiotics acidophilus,
Yep.
which is the name of the actual little critter that you're
Hmm.
putting in you, because it's a little bug, but it's a happy bug that likes to work with you and help you.
Hmm.
They're your friends.
Oh, definitely. And when you take an antibiotic, that's what kills those.
Right. So, okay. So, good point. And if you're taking antibiotics, you probably want to be careful about that because, like, just save them because they're a waste of time until you get through the antibiotics.
Hmm. Hmm.
But, like, by taking antibiotics, it will clean you out where you probably should take these after you do antibiotics, anyways, because you're going to need to replace those that just got destroyed by modern medical miracles, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing that's really important for people to survive this whole damn thing is sleep. You need to get your sleep.
Mm.
And if you can't get your whole 8 hours, you're doing yourself a great disservice. Now, I used to be a road warrior with this stuff. I would get 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours of sleep if I was lucky, sometimes four if I didn't have
Oh.
time. This is really dangerous. It not only affects your productivity the next day, which it really does, it does chip away. And they've done tests with military folks to see how they could hit a target on sleep deprivation. And if you're depriving yourself over and over, it's even worse. If you've got chronic sleep deprivation, this isn't the same as just missing a night's sleep. This is missing a night's sleep every night for a long time. If you're doing that, which is very common with the pace that the family courts put you in, because you have to work 2 or 3 jobs plus do your lawyer in on your own time, right?
Right.
So you've got all this extra money you got to pay and everything and stress you're dealing with. So these 8 hours of sleep are completely important because if you do not get the last hour and a half of that 8 hours, you're missing out on your REM state. And that is when all of your body's self-healing happens. So this is incredibly dangerous for somebody in these toxic liver situations because if you can't heal at night and your body's filling up with toxins every day, you just keep going until you die. And
Oh.
it doesn't take as long as normal, as you can tell, because your body's just going to fill up with poison until you're poisoned.
Hmm.
And that's how lots of parents end up almost dying from sepsis on their couches. And
Mm.
that's what I really want to try and stop here. In fact, if you're in that situation where you think you might die from sepsis, drink lemon water. That's the first place to start with this. Try to
Hmm.
calm down, concentrate on the present, drink lemon water, and then chunk it down one step at a time. But that's the whole goal here. Um, okay, so a lot of people who are in this PTSD situation can't get to bed at night because they
Hmm.
go. I used to be in a situation, my nightmares were so bad, I would not go to sleep.
Mm.
It kept me from ever wanting to go to sleep because my dreams were so freaking god awful. I couldn't
Oh,
stand
yeah.
being part of it. It's almost like Freddy Krueger. It's the
Yes.
basis behind Freddy Krueger and the Nightmare on Elm Street.
Hmm.
Okay, except for you don't have a psychopath in your dreams trying to kill you. You got family courts on that end.
Yeah, which are a bunch of psychopaths.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But they're still doing the job trying to kill you. But don't help them, like I was saying. Don't be
Right,
part of
right.
their squad. So one of the ways to help stop this so you can start getting sleep at night is to maybe do the vagus nerve reset to help calm yourself down. That's a
Hmm.
good thing to do right before you go to bed. And when you wake up in the morning, if you have these nightmares and you wake up, even like a lot of times you might wake up from a nightmare, like, like just all of a sudden you
Oh,
just
yeah.
wake up and you're like, I can't sleep. It's too much. Vagus nerve reset helps with that. But one of the things to help your mind calm down is start going through thinking of all the things you're grateful for. Now,
Hmm.
this can be challenging at the beginning when you're like, they ruined me. I'm homeless now. I've been kicked out. I lost my car, all these things. Most of us, even me, I will go, I still have one good arm. I've still got two good feet. I can
Hmm.
still run and get around. I can do the things. I can breathe air. My lungs are working great. I can still see. I've got two good eyes. I can hear. I've got two good ears. I can smell things. I can taste things. I can still experience life. I can see. So you just start going on that way. Everybody
Hmm.
still has things you can be grateful for, even if you're not in the best of positions at the moment. So it's a little challenging at first, but once again, you practice and you'll get better with it as time goes on.
Hmm. You will. You will.
And a couple of things that you might do before bed also, if you're feeling lots of anxiety before you go to bed, like I used to when I was like, oh my God, I can't sleep. All the nightmares are going to be so bad. Try doing some exercise before you go to bed. This will burn some of that adrenaline out of you or cortisol that helps you relax more. And part of the problem here is also if you don't get those toxins out of your system, they have a caffeinating effect.
Hmm.
So this is called ketoacidosis, and we'll get more into this with the diet here in just a little bit. But that process alone can stop you from being able to sleep just because the toxins that are in your body. So
Hmm.
I remember when I first found those detox foot pads, this was before I knew about the tipping your legs up on the wall exercise. When I first did those, the first night I did those was the first night I'd slept a full 8 hours
Oh,
since I could
interesting.
remember.
Huh.
And it was because it was sucking out the toxins that were keeping me up because they really have a caffeinating effect.
That is fascinating.
But it's science, so you just try it out and see how it works
Yeah.
for you. But like I'm telling you, these things will add up, and as you're doing more and more of them, they compound to make your life easier,
Hmm.
which is what we're all after.
Definitely.
Okay, so a couple of the exercises that can help you before you go to bed besides that is the vertical shake, that one where you just bounce in place. That's a
Hmm.
good one. The other one is tipping your legs up against the wall. That's really good, especially if you're diabetic, because that will get that set up so that fluids rinsing back through your body and your body has a chance to process those things again while you're sleeping in your self-healing mode. See
Yeah.
how that works? We're
Yeah.
setting it up so we're working with your body to make things work better for you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. So the next thing is you're like, well, okay, Nate, these all sound awesome, but I would sure like to cure my PTSD. These
Yeah.
all
How do you
sound
make that go
things.
away?
Yes. Okay. I got an answer for you.
Oh.
SSRIs do not work.
Hmm.
So that wasn't the answer you probably wanted, but that's going to answer a lot of questions about why a lot of people have been taking SSRIs and their depression doesn't go away. They might have worse problems. The SSRIs cause more problems than they solve to start with. They cause weight gain, sexual frustration, and dysfunction. Like they cause all kinds of problems. Now, I've never had to take these personally, but I've read the warning list and the side effects, and I decided then that I wasn't really into that. I would rather just exercise exercise and deal with it. And I fully still recommend that. Unfortunately, if you go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, I should say rather,
Mhm.
they will try to prescribe you SSRIs. More importantly, you'll have a child psychiatrist say, your poor kid's going through all this stress. Let's give them these SSRIs. These things are addictive. You're turning your kid into a drug addict. This
Mhm.
is for really no benefit. That if even if it helps for a little bit in a placebo manner, it's going to end up. And some people say they can feel the benefits of it. And I don't want to knock that for the people that think they're getting benefits out of it, but it's probably coming from a placebo effect because the science from Europe has shown these things don't actually work. Now, the
Mhm.
United States uses more SSRIs than any other country on earth, and we also have more school shootings than any other country on earth.
Mhm.
SSRIs are known to create a side effect of causing homicidal and self-unaliving impulses and ideation.
Mhm.
So you're already in a situation where those things might come across your brain from time to time, and you don't need extra help with that. In fact, you should do exercise if you're feeling in those modes, or do something positive to kind of help you start to feel like you're progressing out of it if you ever feel that way.
Mhm.
But one of the best things you can do is not taking these chemicals that are going to cause that crap to happen inside of you anyways. And I'd also appreciate it, just as a member of the general public, if we could quit getting our kids all ready to go to school and shoot everybody. I think
Mhm.
that's an important thing we need to start cutting down on. Parents, you can take the first step by not giving your kids these damn drugs. Now, you
Mhm.
might not all like the next point that I'm going to make, but I live in Colorado where this is a totally legal point. Magic mushrooms are the deal. You microdose them, so it is not hallucinogenic. Magic mushrooms are not addictive at all. In fact, they're anti-addictive, I've found. Like
Mhm.
taking these actually made it so I didn't even worry about other things like any other addiction type of properties. So like I this helped me a lot just within my own life in that regard. Like I didn't really have an addictive personality beforehand, but like I
Right.
have no problem saying no to like alcohol or whatever else is out there now. In fact, I
Mhm.
control almost all my addictive behaviors that way, whether like sex or food or any of
Mhm.
these other things that people can get addicted to. So basically, I want to give a little advice out here. I will preempt it with saying I do not condone doing illegal drugs, but if you're in a state where you have no other choice, if you were thinking I'm going to do this, I don't want to see you overdose in any way. For the record, I don't think you can necessarily overdose on psychedelic mushrooms, but
Mhm.
you would make yourself sick and other things and definitely hallucinate. And you can do these microdosing with your normal daily activities. It's like
Mhm.
absolutely a background substance that you can go and do the rest of your life. What it's going to do is make you feel more connected to everyone else around you and more connected to the world in general. It will make you more empathetic to people and things. It it's it's really good. It will also boost your creativity and your ability to work with people.
Mhm.
It's pretty amazing, actually, in a lot of ways. So I strongly recommend it. And it also cures your PTSD and will eliminate fear responses. It totally helps with that because it makes you more inclined to laugh at things rather than get scared of it.
Right. Yeah.
Very similar to how psychedelic mushrooms do if you take them in a full dose, which I've done both.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'll admit freely. And this is nothing like a psychedelic experience because you won't be having hallucinations. You will just be getting along with your life, feeling more connected and be more creative, which definitely helps when you're trying to find solutions out of the problems you're going to be in. Now, do be careful if you're in a state where these are illegal. The family courts are notorious for requesting drug screenings and other things, and it
Mhm.
takes about 60 days for these to clear out of your system. So be careful if you're doing that. But I would imagine if you went to a state where it was legal, you might even be able to get away with that way. I don't
Mhm.
know, but you can avoid a difficult conversation if you're worried about it in that regard.
Mhm.
And then I would say get through with your court papers first and find a 2 month period where you wouldn't be going to court right away, like while you're still licking your wounds afterwards or whatever, and then take them then if you
Mhm.
can. Not that I recommend people break the law.
Right.
Trying to walk a line here. Okay, so the other two I've heard of people trying that have actually helped and yielded pretty good results were MDMA, which is Molly or ecstasy. That's
Mhm.
one that also does. Once again, I am not aware of the dosage. Oh, I didn't go over the dosage yet. Let me cover the dosage really quick for magic mushrooms. Um, First of all, you can start and stop them at any time, so don't feel bad about that. Typically what you want to do is crush up or grind up the magic mushrooms, so you just get the mushrooms. Or I one time had tried puffs, which were
Mhm.
like synthetic versions of them, but it still was psychedelic and carried all the same
Mhm.
medicinal properties. So you grind these up and you put them into gel caps. You can buy empty gel caps at your CVS or
Mhm.
Amazon or wherever. So you get some empty gel caps, you fill them up. It is way less than the maximum dosage I was reading about online
Mhm.
for this. So one gel cap full is going to be fine. I always just used one gel cap a day, even though online I found out you could use a lot more. I
Mhm.
just use one gel cap a day, 3 days on, 2 days off,
Mhm.
and then you can repeat as much as you want.
Mm, okay. Huh.
And it will help cure other addictions. So I strongly recommend it, especially for parents who are being hassled over
Mhm.
addictions like that. And one thing I should say while we're on the subject of substance abuse, under the ADAAA, substance abuse is considered a disability and cannot be used against you as long as you are in treatment. And treatment
Mhm.
could include some of these other things like the magic mushrooms and microdosing.
Mhm.
So to finish off this little part, the other two things I heard of were MDMA, which is Molly or ecstasy that can work, and ketamine. Although I was not involved with those types of
Mm-mm.
treatments and I did not use them myself, but I've heard from other parents they do work.
Mm.
Um, Ketamine for sure. Molly and Molly, which is ecstasy, MDMA, that is not very lethal. Like I haven't heard many cases of people with overdoses of that.
Mhm.
Ketamine, on the other hand, totally kills people. In fact, the
Mm.
police kill people with ketamine. There's a really popular story of this kid, Elijah McClain, here in Denver, or Aurora, Colorado, where he
Mm.
was killed by police, and the police were actually held for murder along with the EMTs that administered the
Oh.
ketamine. So I personally don't like the idea of ketamine as much because it has a possibility to be lethal, whereas these
Mhm.
others don't really. And I
Yeah.
think anything you can avoid like that's a good thing to avoid.
Mhm.
Okay, so for the diet part of things, we'd already touched a little bit on ketoacidosis. This is
Mhm.
a issue that happens, and the answer to this is the keto diet. So I personally do this and I like it, but like I was saying, I've had other parents who have tried the carnivore diet, which is similar. What the keto diet basically is you are removing carbs from the whole equation and sugar.
Mhm.
So it's mainly plants, some meat in there too,
Uh-huh.
and uh, basically it's working a similar way though as the carnivore diet, as the carbs are the main thing to cut out of your diet.
Mhm.
So, as we mentioned before, the caffeinating effect from ketoacidosis, so that's where the toxins are built up in your system, um, they affect your ability to sleep and other things. The other thing that gets thrown off is your thyroid, which will
Mhm.
quit performing the same way as it did and can have trouble processing T3 to T4 hormones. But that's why we're taking the iodine supplements with the kelp supplements.
Right. So you don't
That'll
have
help
hair
get you
loss either.
right. Well, your thyroid controls a lot of
Oh,
internal
yeah.
systems like weight gain, weight loss, hair loss, a lot of these different things, and hormones. It's a key thing for women going through menopause.
Mhm.
But not just women. It affects men too. It'll affect your hormones and mess with your body. And so it's really good to get that back on the level. Otherwise, your body's going to be doing all kinds of things that you probably weren't liking.
Mhm.
And in general, you can have a hyperactive thyroid or a hypoactive thyroid. So if you have a high metabolism, you might look into a hyperthyroid situation. If you have a low
Mhm.
metabolism where you have problems gaining lots of extra weight, that could be a hypothyroid
Mhm.
situation.
Yeah, very
And you
true.
should look into the specifics of those, but especially with the hypothyroid, the iodine helps there a lot. Although I
Hmm.
had a hyperactive thyroid and iodine helped balance me out too.
Yeah.
It just, what it will do is help the hormones inside your thyroid process so you can get back to normal life and all those other systems
Hmm.
can start working properly. So we'd already talked before, the deal with the keto diet and the carnivore diet was cutting carbs, and that'll help remove brain fog and sad, watery eyes, swelling
Hmm.
around the eyes, bags underneath the eyes.
Hmm.
All that comes from eating carbs. And I've had too many carbs, and I can still see it in my face, but you'll actually see it in your face. Like, you look like you're doing a good job, Maryann, keeping the carbs down, but
Yeah.
like, or
Salads.
staying away from carbs, I should say. I'm
Right.
doing a good job keeping the carbs down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
But
I'm just doing salads.
right. Okay. Well, excellent job. And see, it shows in your face, actually. You can actually see these things in people's faces. And so cutting carbs, eliminating refined sugar, that's refined white sugar. I find brown
Hmm.
sugar isn't so bad because the molasses component is somehow
Hmm.
the healthy part of it, if you want to think of a healthy part of sugar. But if you just go with the white refined sugar, that is only going to turn into an acid inside your system as your body processes it. So that's
Hmm.
adding to the acidic pH that we're trying to deal with. And then high fructose corn syrup, of course,
Yeah,
that's a no-no, and everybody should already know
exactly.
that. And if you don't, stop today, go through your entire kitchen, find everything that has high
Throw it
fructose
out.
corn syrup in it, and throw it out. Yeah, it's better you throw it out than eat it.
Yeah.
And soda pop in general, try to switch to drinking water as much as possible, because that's where you'll get the most high fructose corn syrup possible. Like,
Hmm.
they found ways to bend water so it can absorb more than sugar can possibly be absorbed into water. So um I want to cover one last thing here. I think it's very important to have faith also. This isn't a requirement by any means. I know a lot of people want to be agnostic or however they want to do it,
Hmm.
atheist if you want to. I'm not here to preach that part. What I'm here to say is, if you become part of another community, that helps out having community around you. That will definitely help and be a component for this. Also, you don't want to necessarily pick a faith where they're going to be super judgmental against you. I think that's something you probably want to avoid. But if you can find one that you gel with and that works well with you and your life and everything, it really helps to have appreciation for something bigger than you in the world, in the natural world. It really
Hmm.
just does. And this is something they teach with AA recovery. And I know not everybody here is an alcoholic or has
Hmm.
addictive qualities, but this is part of treating narcissism also. So we'll be touching on that here in just a second. Um,
Right, because of the narcissist, they totally take away a lot of parents' faith. I get parents that call me and they've lost all faith in God, and it's so sad.
I agree completely, Maryann. And I think it's even worse than that, actually. I've had several
Yeah.
parents where their cases, the courts go out of their way to vilify the parent for having a belief in God. And
Yes.
many times this has been Christianity, actually, I've been dealing with, especially if a judge is really into wanting to push DEI programs. And I don't know where anybody sits on all of this, but I'm just reporting this as a factual issue, that the courts many times will berate and belittle parents for having faith in God. And part of this is the separation process from you and your support structure, because
Hmm.
they know the community will be showing up and doing court watching or other things and backing you up as a hurt parent, and they don't want that. They want to separate you, isolate you in a very predatory way so they can take advantage of you. And that's probably why a bunch of that happens. We don't know,
Hmm.
we don't have conclusive proof on all of that, but there's so much of it happening anecdotally. We got to start looking for why these things are happening. I mean, there's
Hmm.
a definite causal relationship between the two.
Oh, definitely. I'm so glad I had you on. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Um, we can go on and do more about the activists and the parents techniques. I have more for that. We could also save that for another day, actually, because it looks like this might be more than people can digest in one setting too.
Oh, most definitely. I can have you back on because we learned so much. There's a lot. This was great. I totally appreciate it.
I've wonderful things. This is all really good though as a starting point, and then this
Mhm.
give parents a chance to work on some of these. I have a bunch of great points also for people to work together as a community for activism and as parents to be more effective in their own cases also. And we also wanted to tackle the whole concept of narcissism, but I don't think we can do that an hour and a half into the discussion because
I
that
know.
might be its own beast.
Oh, I think it is. It's like a podcast on its own, for Pete's sake.
It totally could be, and I think we should allow it to be that way because that will allow us to explore some of the rabbit holes that come off of that one, because that's definitely worth it, because so many of these issues that parents run across are based on having to deal with antisocial personality disorders within the family courts,
Oh,
because
yes,
just being a judge does not preclude you from being mentally ill. You have a position
exactly.
of power, you make a lot of money, and you have clout, but that doesn't mean you can't be a narcissist or a psychopath. Quite
Hmm.
frankly, the number one job for psychopaths is being a CEO, but they love positions of power
Hmm.
because they hold power over other people, making family courts a natural fit for covert malignant narcissism and psychopathy. In fact, I just released a really great Substack on the subject on my Substack about institutional psychopathic groupthink that's probably a worthwhile read for anybody that's interested.
That's excellent because they can find you on PALADN media at protonmedia.com and then PALADNmedia.substack.com. I can put all of your links in the
I
podcast
appreciate
notes.
that. Can I say
Yeah,
real
go
quick for
ahead.
the
Go
folks?
ahead.
This is for the Paladin stands for Parental Alienation Legal Abuse Defense Network.
That's
So it's
excellent.
Paladin with no I in the word,
Right.
but it's
Right.
paladinmedia.substack.com and paladinmedia at protonmail.com.
Yeah, that's why I spelled it out because I don't want people to think there's an I in there.
Yeah, you did a good job. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, hey, hang on. Don't jump off, okay? Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri, and you can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe, Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms I don't know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. And thank you, Nate Munro, for coming on with all this great knowledge and nutritional, advice. This was great. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.